Righty, what's going on, everybody? Good morning. Happy Thursday. We're back. Dan, Edo, it's great to see you boys this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So for those of you
It's great to be seen.
Yes, it is great. And then happy pre-birthday to my boy Dan. Dan is turning 21 tomorrow. So
Yep, big day.
big day. His first taste of alcohol is going to be tomorrow. So but for those of you tuning in and do not know what Unicorn Finders is, it's a podcast to basically talk about companies who do really cool shit that you probably haven't heard of. Just to be totally honest. And so we are really, really excited to have somebody on the show today across the water, as they say, I think.
Across the pond, huh?
Across the pond. That's it. Not across.
Yeah.
It's okay. But Edo, thanks for joining us, man. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right, so let's dive in, man. What is Spot.AI? And then we'll start peppering you with questions to sound knowledgeable.
Right. So if you open up our homepage, it will say something like to create safer, smarter workplaces, organizations. And how we do that is we create an easy-to-use camera system. So we don't actually, build cameras, but we integrate with the network cameras that you have on site. So we're definitely a B2B tool, right?
Okay.
We do provide hardware on site, some boxes that you will install, connect to your network, ingest all the feeds from all the cameras, and then we crunch the data, we index it, and make it accessible easily, remotely, so you can look at the cameras from home. Yeah, that's it.
So it's not a security system.
So yeah, this might be a bit confusing, but this is of course where the industry comes from originally. Security cameras,
Okay,
it's a big
right.
like Big Brother in 1984.
Right.
That's what everyone thinks. That's what I thought when I first started.
Correct.
But in the end, they're just cameras, and they're just looking at stuff. In our case, very often workplaces, factories, whatnot, and all that data, visual data. There's a lot of information in there, but it's as a human to parse all of that is way too much, right? It's gigabytes, terabytes, petabytes of data. And it's valuable way beyond security. Security is just kind of the entrance point that a lot of businesses take. That's just the first thing that come to mind for when they think about security cameras, right? But if you just think about, you can just observe your operations from wherever you are. If you're a CEO and you're at home or you're on the beach in the Bahamas, you can look at your business and look at what's going on. Yeah.
So is this tool mainly for businesses? Is that y'all's pitch?
Yeah,
this is more on the business side.
It's currently only for businesses. So there are definitely other companies like Wise, for instance, that brings out customer grade cameras. And we are mainly focused on the software around it. We do provide cameras if you want them from us.
Because that was my next question.
Yeah, we do provide them, but we see cameras as a commodity. Right now, you can get a $50 camera on Amazon. That's great. It's HD, and it works perfectly. It's outdoor rated, cold, hot temperatures, whatever. We don't want to, compete in that space. What we want to compete on is how do you actually use those cameras? So we build a software layer that makes it easy to access the video footage, search through it, analyze it. Yeah.
Interesting. So I've got some questions about that as a whole. Obviously, cameras have been around. Security cameras have been around for a long time. It seems like we're, especially with the, Ring being brought in, obviously you guys being brought in from a business perspective. There's a lot of new camera technology that's been pushed into the marketplace. What exactly did you guys see from because it's my understanding that you were the first developer that got hired over there. So first off, congratulations. But on top of that, what was kind of the pain point that was felt in the industry before you guys came in to try to solve it that the business was created for?
Pretty classic startup success story in a way that our founder, Tanush, he was first at Meraki before it was acquired by Cisco. He was in the hardware division. They also make cameras, so I don't think that's a coincidence. But when Meraki got acquired, I think that was pretty good for Tanush personally. So he managed to get out, go to Stanford, study AI. And I think there he kind of connected the dots. Meraki cameras, AI, and he was motivated, to build an AI system on top of this camera footage. So that's what he did. He built like a prototype proof concept, and he could do, I don't know, facial detection. It was just a Raspberry Pi, super small compute device with a camera module, and he could do 120 frames per second facial detection. Amazing, right?
Right.
So he brought me in. He's like, let's make this into a product. So I go build the cloud dashboard and whatnot. And what happened then is, okay, Tanuj goes out to sell this thing to customers, and all the customers are like, yeah, that's, I don't know, pretty cool, but we got to tell you, there's some other problems we have. Namely, I cannot watch my cameras when I'm at home. And we were like, what? Okay, maybe they're a one-off customer that has a system from the 80s. But as we went on talking, this repeated itself over and over. We were trying to sell some fancy AI, and they're like, well, we have other problems. There was one.
We can't even watch it. So
exactly. No,
AI,
literally,
right.
literally, they were like, we had one real estate manager. She was managing four buildings in Houston, and she would get a call, and she would have to go on site to watch the footage. So she goes drives there, goes into this Harry Potter like room below the staircase where there's literally like a screen and a mouse, and then to log in you get an on-screen keyboard to put your password in with the mouse. Literally, this is literally.
I mean, by that point, if there's any sort of issues, they would have already been done and gone, and like.
Oh, this is always after the fact. It's like, oh, the cleaner didn't come, and then she has to check that, or there's a scratch on a car.
Yeah.
And so she does that, goes through that pain, gets another call, has to drive an hour through town to the other place, and she would spend hours a day, right? So we were like, what is this? Why is this not solved? It was 2019, and we were just thinking, we want to build this AI stuff. This is basics. We don't want to deal with this. But turns out there wasn't a good solution for this if you have older equipment on site. There are newer players that would replace all your cameras, and each camera is a little compute device itself, interconnected, IoT, but it's expensive. So a lot of businesses just cannot afford that. So we saw that as an opportunity. We come in, we deploy a box on site that connects over the network to the cameras, ingests it, and then connects up to our cloud. And then through our cloud dashboard, you can access the footage.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. That's a crazy pivot.
I've got a question that's totally unrelated to your company necessarily, but about the industry as a whole. How much longer are we going to live in a day and age where surveillance cameras look like they're filmed in the 1930s to when we can get some more higher def resolution video for surveillance, for example? Right? Like I think of like the shooting in Moscow.
It's pretty bad.
Like, here's a 2013 car that looks like it was filmed in 1922.
So I'll tell you what's up here. So
appreciate that.
Sometimes it's just really an old camera, right, with really bad resolution. Okay, but the $50 Amazon camera that I told you about is actually HD. It records in higher quality than most of the YouTube videos are uploaded in, right? It can record in higher frame rates than most of the YouTube videos, but there's always a trade-off here in bandwidth and storage. Right? So if you're going to be streaming super high definition, if you're going to sync up to the cloud, it's super expensive just for bandwidth reasons. But if you're writing down to a hard disk, you also want to keep that footage for quite a long time. Right? So our boxes come with terabytes of data, and we connect, like, say we connect 16 cameras, and that is good for like 30 days. If you want more than that, right, then either you put in more hard drives or you lower the quality. So there's a balance that people are usually trying to find. Currently, we are at like 5 megapixel, which is pretty good. It's higher than 1080p, right? So, and then they usually drop the frame rate. And this is kind of where, if you're starting to balance this is where you end up with a situation where you think, why does this look so shitty? If I record this with my phone, it looks better, right?
Hey, sure.
Yeah, and I feel like that's just I think that's an interesting issue, right? Because it's like you want higher quality, but then it starts to get expensive. Let me ask you this: like, what's y'all's price structure look like? And I mean, how do y'all make money? I mean, is it a monthly cost? Do you have like tiered for different type of amount of data? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah, we have two tiers. One is the basic tier with the core features, being able to access your footage, see, search it, share it, collaborate on it. And then there's the pro tier, which includes AI features, The basic tier also has some AI features, but the pro tier has more advanced like analytics features. So we've recently started building out our AI features more aggressively. So what we do is we detect people and vehicles. So you can imagine these bounding boxes, right, around people and vehicles. And with that basic data, we can do very cool stuff. We can count people, vehicles over time. We can do these graphs over the day. How busy is your store? We can do idle time for cars, which is very important for car washes. You know, they have this tunnel, right, and they don't want it to stop.
Didn't think about that.
Of course, I also didn't think about that. Turns out this is what they need. And then it's a monthly fee, but multi-year contracts usually, because the customers also don't want to swap out their system every few months, right?
So I'm curious on the back end, what does the AI report look like? Does like a customer get like and again, I know you guys started to be like an AI-based company. Then you're like, well, let's just give access to people from their homes, and then let's worry about the AI. So like on the back end, so let's say Vaco, they sign up to use Spot.AI. So like Vaco goes out, buys the cameras, implements your software to kind of sit on top of the cameras, right? Because that's kind of how I'm envisioning it in my head. And then it's like, is there features to where it's like, Vaco, we want to see like how many people like go through our front door monthly. We want to see like how packed the parking lot is. Like, does like Vaco get an email like at the end of the month, like with these numbers that are like preset on the front end? Like, how does that work?
I think it's a bit better than that. We have live dashboards.
Cool.
So we index all the footage with AI analysis all the time. So we have the raw data, these boxes with people and vehicle detections. We store all of that. And then you can create a dashboard, because you don't want reports for every cam. You know, the cam looking at the server room, you don't want a vehicle count report. So you pick your cameras that are important to you. You might pick the parking lot camera or the cash desk camera, whatever is important to you. And there's a couple of reports that we that we provide for you. So you could have a people counting exactly, and then you see graphs over time. And you can get a table of all the occurrences of people. If it's the vehicle idle, you would get all the occurrences where vehicles are idling longer than 30 seconds. This is important for car wash. Again, they can see all the incidents, like, oh, this is the tunnel got stuck because of this machine, this and that, right? So it's dashboards, it's live, it's also retroactive. So you set up the dashboards, and we will immediately analyze all the data that goes back forever how long footage you have, so 30 days usually.
That's awesome. What you don't have to list specific companies, if you want to, it's fine. What industries seem to be like really interested in y'all's product? Like, do y'all have kind of a consistent industry yet?
Yeah, so I mentioned car washes. This was so we had one customer, Tyler from Camel Car Wash. He is a super happy user. He's vocal about it in the car wash community too. So he also has a podcast, right? And he was talking about us. So for whatever reason, we got pretty big in car washes. That's where it started. But we're definitely expanding now. We're in warehousing. We're working our way through education now. So it's very broad, because cameras are everywhere nowadays. Right.
I've got a completely different question about business and about you in particular. Spot.AI is winning all sorts of awards. They're really taking the industry by storm. You were hired as the first developer. You guys have obviously grown in scale and are going to continue to grow and scale quite rapidly. But what are some things that you did at the beginning to surround yourself and build out the team that's now developing these great tools? Because conceptually, you can have a great idea that a lot of times doesn't execute, but you guys are actually executing on that. What are some things that you owe some of that success to, or what are some of the things that you guys looked for in team members as you were building them out?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think we owe a lot to just the network of our three co-founders. They're all from the Stanford ecosystem, right? So we got a bunch of we got a bunch of Stanford grads, and I can honestly say I have never worked with a better group of people than I have at Spot. Like, the bar is really high. Unfortunately, that also meant we had to let some people go that it didn't really work out. But yeah, I think if you want to execute at this level, I mean, it's cliche, but you need the best of the best in terms of people. And where you get them is also our co-founders. They came from good companies, and of course they have connections there. So we had a couple people coming from high performing companies coming over to us.
Yeah, I love that. What as we kind of wrap up here with our time with you, and again, thank you for hanging out with us, especially being over in Vienna. What's been y'all's biggest success so far? What are you most proud of? I guess with the product over the last few years.
Yeah. So what's cool from a product perspective is all the cool new AI features that we're building. But I think from a higher level, what's been a success for the customers is the basic features that we're actually building out. I see it as a pyramid. If you think of if you know Maslow's pyramid of needs, where the base layers, if you don't have food, you're not thinking about anything else. Okay, if you have food but you're living in a war zone, you're not thinking about anything else except for getting safe. And that's what I found with Spot as well. We tried to build the top of the pyramid, which is this cool AI stuff. But if people can't access their footage, no one's going to care about the AI. So you got to build the access first. Then we build collaboration sharing features. And only now we're getting to build out those AI features. And I think that's a big success, that how we realize that that's what we got to do. We got to build a good foundation first, even if that means we got to delay the AI stuff.
I love that. Last question, and then you can go about, because what time is it? It's 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon over there right now.
Yes, almost 5.
Yeah, there you go. So, we'll go ahead and get you out of your way, I guess. And this you kind of answered my question, but I still want to ask it: is what's your biggest tip for founders and individuals starting out a business from day one, like you did? What's your biggest piece of advice for those folks?
Yeah. So for startups, it's always listen to customer feedback, because you cannot stay in your bubble. I definitely learned this at Spot. Like, I knew it intellectually, but the way how relentless our founders go after customer feedback, that is how we heard, this AI stuff, it's interesting, but this is what we really need. And if we wouldn't have had that feedback, we wouldn't have been able to make that pivot, and then we probably wouldn't be here. Right.
Yeah.
So that is definitely my number one piece of advice.
I love that, man. I love that. Well, Edo, thank you again for hanging out with us today.
Thank you, guys.
Appreciate it.
It's been a blast.
And we'll be in touch. We got some things in the works to help connect our past guests with each other.
Cool.
So be on the lookout for that. But thanks again, man. We appreciate it.
Cool. Thank you. Bye.
All right,
Thank you.
Take it easy.
Congratulations on your success.
Thanks. See ya.
Hey, man.
Hey, pal.
Hey, buddy.
Yeah, I think it goes to say a few things. One, I appreciate Kelly Vaughn. Kelly Vaughn's been on the program multiple times now. I think that this is an incredible tool, and it's a fascinating tool. And as somebody that uses car washes religiously, I can understand. I can understand the business. Best of luck to them. But I mean, from a tool perspective, just as a whole, fascinatingly cool product.
Yeah, so we've definitely never had somebody on the show in this industry. This is the first for us. I think, I love interviewing folks like this, because you learn about things and you wouldn't think about things. That my mouth did not actually drop to the floor, but when he said car washes, I was like, what? But really, as he talked about it, it makes sense, because no one's really there. Right. And so you need to have like Spot.AI is almost like, I don't know, I would say like basically your human contact virtually, if that makes sense, in a sense where like it's literally analyzing everything, and it's giving you that data real time from a dashboard when the business that you're running doesn't need that person there. So I think it's actually kind of brilliant from that perspective.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, this is just, I'm thinking, right? Because that's what we do in this segment of the show. We just think, and I'm going to let my brain wander, and then people in the comments tell me you're an idiot and all this other stuff, and I appreciate them keeping me honest. But I start to think of like beyond just car washes and stuff like that. I mean, I start to think of like drive-throughs, right? And what kind of reaction do we need to have to the number of cars that are, in a drive-through we have, right? I mean, Chick-fil-A always has people out there, but what if you don't have, what if the way that the line flows, you can better predict traffic flow? Now, obviously, I know you can do that with tickets and things of that nature, but this can be a little bit more real time. I start to think of traffic patterns. I start to think of intersections, and I start to think of all of the different things that you can do with having the ability to to monitor and track, true life data as it's happening in camera and be able to pull out and make actionable decisions, right? And so whereas it is now is for, the result of, an incident, right? And to respond quickly
Right.
to an incident, I start to think, well, as you start to garner large amounts of data, you can now start to attribute to, does this intersection, describe an intersection, and there's 2,000 of them around the US, right? And you say, hey,
Right.
this intersection causes the most types of accidents based on all of this data that we've collected over 10 years, right? I mean, we're speaking super far into the future.
Sure.
All of a sudden, you can really start making like true life, real life, better, decisions and optimization for society. So I think that there's so many cool aspects of it.
You know who I think would be really, really a great client for Spot.AI if they could land it is Chick-fil-A.
Yeah, I mean Chick-fil-A they
Because like
they've got their drive-through figured out.
I mean, you could argue that they don't need Spot.AI, but I think with the amount of traffic going through those stores, I think the data for that could be fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, I start to think of, what do you do? Let's just say not Chick-fil-A.
Football
that is
stadiums.
always
Well, football stadiums.
Right. I was just going to say concert and event spaces, right? You're talking about traffic egress and everything else. I think that there's so many different things that you can learn beyond just, what is this incident, right? What is a traffic pattern? Not even just cars, right? People, where do we see the most number of people coming into an area where it gets funneled, into where there's issues that clog that funnel, right? Or how can we, maybe if we have, we want everybody to come through our main entrance, but maybe if there's too many people, we start to open up some side entrances. And once we get triggered by cameras to say, hey, there's this number of people in an area, we're gonna open, that trigger, right? Or I start to think of traffic patterns on a highway, right, that have like express lanes, right? And how they sometimes have those express lanes that go, north, south, and they'll flip depending on traffic, right?
Yeah.
Stuff like that. I mean, I just think that there's so many different actionable things that you can have, with good camera data. And again, I could be completely off on what their business is trying to actually do, into which I apologize to Edo, Kelly, and the rest of the Stanford folks. But I think that we're thinking some things here that can, really help society.
Yeah, 100%. Well, Dan, as we wrap up here, I want to pivot a little bit. So you and I haven't caught up about the job market and kind of what's going on. Microsoft obviously laid off more. I know you and Jake have a group text, and we've been sharing articles and basically that we've been calling it. I mean, for those people who are still concerned about 2023, I mean, what are your thoughts regarding the job market in 2023?
Listen, I think that there is going to be some tightening. I don't know what that means. I do think that there is an overgrowth, and I hate to say that because it sounds like I'm like taking this at the expense of people, right? Because I don't. Like, I am proud that a lot of people got raises over the last few years, elevated themselves, put themselves in a position to learn a couple things here. One, and again, I'm speaking about nameless, faceless people that I know have names and faces and families and lives, and so I don't want to sound insensitive here. Amazon laid off 18,000 people. Amazon also has 1.4 million employees, right?
Yeah, right?
Microsoft has hundreds of thousands of employees, and I know that there's layoffs, but I don't want to get so caught up in the sheer number of things, because I think that scares people, and I think it scares businesses as well. The biggest thing that I can tell you as an individual, whether you're looking for a job or whether you have a job right now and you might be a little bit concerned, is continue to do the small important things, whether it's showing up to work on time, being a good member of your team, being a good steward, doing those reliable communicative things, right? Same thing happens when you're looking for a job. Like, do apply for jobs, do reach out to recruiters, do try to network, do those small things, create consistency and patterns, follow up, do the things that you want to set out to do. We are still right now having fewer layoffs than we were before COVID, by a pretty large margin. You're going to see some layoffs. You're going to see some changes in the economy.
Especially with big tech.
But I assure you that, like, big tech is not real life, right? there's a lot of opportunities that are out there. And I don't want you to think of it as like a lost opportunity. If like you had an amazing job and big tech had a layoff and maybe you have to take a little bit of a pay cut, like you also have to look at it of like, where were you a few years ago too? And sometimes these things happen, and there is going to be a bounce back and there's going to be a bounce up. So we're praying for you, here for you, but big tech and a lot of these news things aren't real life either.
100%. I agree. Cool. All right, man. Well, see you in the Bahamas tomorrow. So for those of you,
it's my birthday. Yeah. So
we're not going to the Bahamas just for Dan's birthday, even though I would.
Well, I don't know. I brought 1,000 people together just for my birthday.
1,000 people. Yes. But it's also VACO, our company's conference for the sales rewards leaders. And we're both going with Jake. Jake's already head down. That's why he couldn't make it today. But Dan, happy early birthday, man. I'm looking forward to celebrating with you tomorrow.
Absolutely. Thank you guys so much for today. And thanks to Edo. Not thank you guys, just thank you. Thank Edo, Kelly Vaughn, and everybody else. I'm looking forward to doing this, next week?
Yep, next week. All right.
Thanks, everybody that watched.